Good morning. I hope you are doing great today. I know I am. It is another great day to hang out with you and encourage in the early day. I was thinking this morning after I hung out with some friends last night about the idea of comparison. And one of the funnier things about comparison was that 1980s movie Caddyshack. And the one fellow was asking Chevy Chase uh, how he compared himself with others. And he said, I compare myself by height. And I thought that was such a profound statement because he didn't spend much time golfing and comparing himself against other golfers. He just liked to golf. And so, what I have concluded is that life has unintentional consequences. Those consequences sometimes aren't even noticeable immediately, they're built in over time. And one of those is in the institutional schooling system. It teaches us a lot of good things, but one of the bad things it teaches us is to compare ourselves with others. And um, that I understand that the system has to measure so they know what they're doing. But in that process, it sometimes teaches people some really bad habits themselves. Consequently, they may affect them the rest of their days. So to be excellent in a topic in the institutional schooling system, you generally have to get 90 to 92 to 100%. Well, that tells the other, well, it tells 90 to 92% of the people that they're not excellent. And they may not be hardwired to learn those subjects in that way. And so the rest of their days, they'll be hardwired with the idea that I don't measure up. Or maybe even worse, maybe I'm stupid. And that is not the case whatsoever. But the system isn't hardwired to teach them otherwise. And so I, uh, I listened to a fellow named Jim Quick, and he has a podcast, and he had a severe traumatic brain injury, and now he teaches people how to think quickly. Isn't that funny? He can think quickly, and one of his sayings is not how smart are you, but how are you smart? And the word smart just means knowledgeable. It means the ability to quickly discern something. And so the topics that we're sometimes taught in the educational system aren't what we have to be smart about in life. I've got a friend who's a mechanic and he's as sharp as they get. I've got, would you want your barber to be smart about how to cut something like this or no? What do you want? So I think all that's really interesting. But um, I wanted to read you a Bible verse about that, and so give you like this is just a self-assessment. I'm not very good at rote memory. It's just not my strong suit. So I didn't do well in the things in the institutional education that required you to have rote memory because I couldn't do it very well. But I think I'm pretty good at writing, and there's no real scale on that. I don't have any idea how I compare those things to you, nor do I care because I just know those are either strengths or weaknesses, and I go with them as I can. But listen to what Paul said about this idea. He was talking about it in some spiritual matters, but this is what he says. And this is one of the verses I've tried to memorize, and my rote memory just can't do it. It is a tongue twister. It's a riddle. And so I may not even be able to read it, is how crazy it is. But he says, and he's talking to believers in Jesus, which you are, for we are not bold to class or compare ourselves with some of those who commend themselves. But when they measure themselves by themselves and compare themselves with themselves, they are without understanding. Can you believe that verse? I can't even. Let's try it again. For we are not bold to class or compare ourselves with some of those who commend themselves, but when they measure themselves by themselves and compare themselves with themselves, they are without understanding. Isn't that hilarious? So I can't even read the stupid thing, but he's saying don't be a comparer. When you compare, as Theodore Roosevelt said, it steals your joy. And so what I would encourage you today is to uniquely use the gifts that you have. A good friend of mine made me this a few weeks ago. She made me a mask, and she's gifted to do something like this. I couldn't even begin to tell you what that would do. We did a family paint night the other night, and it was hilarious. You could tell which of us are gifted and which ones aren't. But I want to just tell you today that as you go about your day, live out your giftedness. Don't worry about where you're not as tall as me or whatever. And think about the last verse in 2 Corinthians 10. The one I just read you is 2 Corinthians 10:12. The last verse says, "For it is not he who commends himself that is approved, but he whom the Lord commends." And I'll tell you this right now, you're great in his eyes. So live out that greatness today and make today a special day, not only in your life, but those that you love. See you soon.